People walked above it for centuries without knowing an entire city existed beneath their feet. Imagine renovating your home, knocking down a simple basement wall and staring into a dark, endless abyss. You don't just find a hidden room, you find a gateway to an impossible underground world. An 18-story subterranean megacity, built deep into the earth, outfitted with secret doors, massive ventilation shafts, and enough space to hide 20,000 people from an apocalyptic threat. Today we are dropping deep into the dark to uncover how this ancient fortress was built, who they were hiding from, and how it remained completely forgotten by the modern world until a single stroke of a hammer changed history forever. Chapter 1. The day the wall crumbled. The year is 1963. The location is Cappadocia, Turkey. An ordinary man is doing some routine home renovations in his basement. He takes a sledgehammer to a stone wall to expand his space. The wall crumbles, but instead of solid rock or soil behind it, there is nothing, just empty space. He shines a flashlight through the gap. He sees a hand-carved stone tunnel leading straight down into the earth. Now, if you found a creepy tunnel in your basement, what would you do? Most people would call the police or lock the door and never look back. But this man decides to explore it. He climbs through the breach. He walks down the dark corridor. The tunnel leads to another room, and that room leads to more tunnels. He keeps walking, turning corner after corner, descending deeper and deeper into the planet. He realizes this isn't just a cave. Every single inch of the walls has been precisely carved by human hands. He had just stumbled upon Derinkuyu. It is the deepest excavated underground city on Earth. And when I say deep, I mean mind-bogglingly deep. It drops down nearly 280 feet into the volcanic rock. That is equivalent to an 18-story skyscraper, but built completely upside down, straight into the crust of the Earth. But here is the real kicker. This wasn't a temporary bomb shelter. This was a fully functioning, highly organized metropolis. And the people living above it had absolutely no idea it was there. For generations, farmers grew crops, and children played on the surface, entirely oblivious to the massive hollow labyrinth resting right beneath their shoes. Chapter 2. The impossible scale of Derinkuyu. To truly understand the absolute insanity of this place, we need to look at the sheer scale of the engineering. We are talking about a space that could comfortably hold 20,000 people, along with all of their livestock, food reserves, and water supplies. Think about that for a second. 20,000 people is the size of a modern American college campus or a massive sports stadium. How do you keep that many people alive deep underground without modern technology? No electricity, no plumbing, no artificial ventilation? Well, the ancient engineers who built this were absolute geniuses. First, they solved the air problem. If you put 20,000 people in a sealed underground cave, they will suffocate in a matter of hours. To fix this, the builders carved over 15,000 vertical ventilation shafts. These shafts ran from the surface all the way down to the deepest levels of the city. They acted like natural lungs. They pulled fresh air from the surface and pushed it through every single room, hall, and tunnel. Even at the lowest level, nearly 300 feet down, the air is clean, cool, and perfectly breathable. Next, they needed water. You can't survive without water. The main ventilation shafts doubled as deep water wells. But here is where the design gets incredibly clever. The wells did not connect to the surface at the very top. Why? Because the builders were terrified of attackers poisoning their water supply from above. So the wells could only be accessed from inside the underground city itself. It was completely secure, closed-loop survival engineering. And what about the rock itself? The region of Cappadocia is famous for a unique geological feature called tuff. It is a soft rock made from compacted volcanic ash. When it is first exposed to air, it is relatively soft and easy to carve with basic hand tools. But once it sits and dries, it hardens into solid, durable stone. The builders took advantage of this perfect natural canvas. They carved out miles of tunnels without using a single piece of wood or steel to support the ceilings. The architecture itself was perfectly balanced. But how did they actually live down there? Let's look at the daily reality of life in total darkness. Chapter 3. Daily life in the dark. Imagine living in a world where the sun never rises, where your entire reality is lit by the flickering orange glow of linseed oil lamps. This wasn't just a place where people hid in fear, shivering in corners. They brought their entire civilization downstairs. On the upper levels closest to the surface, they carved out massive stables. Why the upper levels? Because getting heavy livestock like cows, horses, and donkeys down 18 flights of narrow stone stairs would be a total nightmare. The animals lived on the top floors, and their body heat actually helped warm the upper levels of the city. As you go deeper, you find the residential quarters, thousands of tiny private family rooms carved out of the rock. They had communal kitchens with large stone ovens. Look closely at the ceilings of these kitchens today, and you can still see the black soot from fires cooked thousands of years ago. The smoke was channeled out through hidden vents so it wouldn't choke the residents. They had massive storage rooms filled with giant clay jars. These jars held wheat oil, dried meat, and barley. They had enough food to survive underground for months at a time without ever stepping foot outside. But they didn't just store food. They kept their culture alive. Archaeologists found a massive room with a unique T-shape complete with stone benches. This was a school. They had classrooms where children learned by lamplight. They had religious chapels complete with beautifully carved altars and baptismal fonts. They even had wineries. They carved out massive stone presses to crush grapes and channels to drain the juice into storage vats. Think about that. They were facing potential execution on the surface, but they still made sure they had wine underground. But living here wasn't a luxury vacation. The ceilings in the hallways are intentionally low and narrow. If you walk through Derinkuyu today, you have to hunch over and walk single file. This wasn't an accident or lazy design. It was a highly deliberate defensive strategy. If an invading army ever managed to find the secret entrance and break inside, they couldn't rush through the halls. They would be forced to walk one by one, hunched over, making them incredibly easy targets for the defenders hiding in the shadows. Chapter 4: The Ultimate Fortress. Derinkuyu was above all else an unbreachable underground castle. If an enemy army surrounded the area on the surface, the citizens would pull back into the earth, close the doors, and completely vanish. But how do you lock an underground city? You can't just put a wooden door with a padlock on a stone tunnel. Instead, the builders created one of the coolest security systems of the ancient world. They carved massive circular stone wheels out of solid rock. These doors weighed up to 1,000 pounds each and were up to 5 feet wide. They were placed inside specially designed tracks in the tunnels. From the inside, just a couple of people could easily roll this massive stone wheel across the tunnel, completely sealing off the passage. But from the outside, it was completely impossible to open. There were no handles, no levers, and the fit was so tight that you couldn't even slip a blade between the door and the wall to lever it open. And in the center of each giant stone wheel, the builders cut a small round hole. This hole served two purposes. First, it acted like a peephole, so defenders could see who was on the other side. Second, it was a gun port. If an enemy tried to break down the door, the defenders could thrust spears or shoot arrows straight through the center hole, killing the attackers with absolute safety. But it gets even crazier. The city was built in sectors. Each floor could be sealed off independently from the others. If an invading army somehow bypassed the first stone door on the first level, the defenders would just retreat to the second level and roll shut another massive stone wheel. The attackers would find themselves trapped in a dark, claustrophobic stone choke point, unable to move forward, while defenders attacked them from hidden holes in the ceiling. It was a tactical nightmare for any invader. Entering Derinkuyu as an enemy was a guaranteed suicide mission. But this leaves us with the biggest mystery of all. Who actually built this place? And who are they so desperately trying to hide from? Chapter 5: The Mystery of the Builders. This is where the history gets murky and where experts still argue today. Because Derinkuyu is carved out of solid rock, you can't use traditional carbon dating on the walls. Rock doesn't have organic material, so archaeologists have to act like detectives looking for clues left behind in the dust. Some historians believe the oldest parts of the city were dug out by the Hittites around 1400 BC. The Hittites were a massive Bronze Age empire that ruled the region, and they were constantly under attack from fierce rival tribes. Other experts argue that it was built by the Phrygians around 800 BC. The Phrygians were incredible stone architects known for complex underground works. But while we don't know for certain who struck the very first hammer blow, we do know exactly who perfected it and used it the most: the early Christians. During the Roman Empire, practicing Christianity was illegal and highly dangerous. Christians were persecuted, hunted down, and executed. Later, during the Byzantine era, the region was a constant war zone between Christian empires and invading Arab Muslim armies. For the locals living in Cappadocia, life was incredibly stressful. At any moment, an army could appear over the horizon to burn your village, steal your crops, and take your family into slavery. So they built the ultimate escape plan. The moment scouts spotted dust clouds on the horizon, indicating an approaching army, the alarm was raised. Thousands of people would grab their children, herd their livestock, pack up their food, and march down into the basement. They would roll the giant stone doors shut, extinguish any revealing lights near the surface vents, and wait in absolute silence. On the surface, the invading army would ride into the village and find it completely empty. No people, no animals, no gold, just empty stone houses. The invaders would look around confused, completely unaware that an entire population of 20,000 people was breathing, eating, and praying just a few feet below their horses' hooves. Derinkuyu was used as a shelter for thousands of years. It was occupied all the way up until 1923, when the local Christian population was relocated during a population exchange between Greece and Turkey. Once they left, the entrances were forgotten, covered by dirt, and sealed behind basement walls. Lost to history for 40 years until a random guy decided to fix up his house. But here is the most chilling thought to leave you with. Derinkuyu is not alone. Archaeologists have found over 200 underground cities and tunnels in the Cappadocia region. And right now, many experts believe they are all connected by secret underground highways stretching miles beneath the earth. We have only excavated a tiny fraction of what is actually down there. It makes you wonder, what else is hidden right beneath our feet, waiting for a single hammer blow to change history again? If this deep dive blew your mind, do me a huge favor and hit that like button. It tells the algorithm that real history stories still matter. And make sure to subscribe, because in our next video, we are uncovering a massive ancient structure hidden deep inside the Amazon rainforest that scientists said was impossible. You won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay curious.